Meet Nia Castelly, co-founder and head of legal at Checks, Google's AI compliance platform. Her team helps companies build safer apps and deploy generative AI responsibly at scale. In this episode, she shares how innovation and accountability can and must go hand in hand.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're glad to have you. Could you start off telling us about how Google is using your services and ultimately how it works?
Yeah. I am the co-founder and head of legal for Checks, which is Google's AI-powered compliance platform for mobile apps. So we started because, GDPR and the challenges application developers face with being compliant in a new sort of regime and in a way that hasn't been faced in the mobile app space before. And we thought, how can we make this easier? How can we help companies continue to innovate, but also do it responsibly, as we talk about? And so that's where Checks was born. My co-founder, Fergus Hurley, and I created it inside of Google, and then we eventually became a full-fledged developer product. And so our target market, or who we help, are third-party developers. So any company with a mobile application who's looking to ensure that they're managing and handling their users' data appropriate. So making sure what they say they're doing, what they're actually doing, and what they're required doing actually matches up. And so we've also expanded into the AI space because these issues, as we've been talking about, continue. It's challenging, to be out there and harnessing the amazing things that AI has to offer, but how do you do it responsibly and still, compete? And so that's where we offer helping developers with what we call AI safety, which is really looking at, in an automated way, their content safety so that they can evaluate models more responsibly, making sure that they're acting in the way their company values and what they're required to do, and then to deploy confidently.
And so what platforms does this currently work with? And tell us more about why all AI content should be monitored in this fashion.
Well, I think, we all have a responsibility, I think, as users of these products, and certainly developers of the products, and of course our foundation model creators. But it's a combination effort, I believe. And so that's what we're focused on. So companies who want to develop applications, whether they're in our mobile devices, which is where most of us interact with many applications, whether it be web, or platform-based, you want to make sure that if you're using this new technology, which is changing, and some folks don't completely understand it, you can do so with confidence and say, I want to do the right thing by my users. So that's the tool that we're offering them. Here's a space where you can do adversarial testing, for example, at scale, and make sure that what's coming out of the model that you're either using or you're considering using is actually what you expect of it.
And I have an interesting use case. We have a coworker that is a recent mother again and is passionate about building out children's books and has built a beautiful theme around it. But at the end of the day, she's a terrible artist and wants to use AI to help create the content for her book. Where does that fall in your mind from a legal compliance perspective, as well as bringing creativity to children's books?
That's a great example because we want to ensure that that's another beauty of Gen AI that I love, is that it creates this democratization and expands, people's ability to create and to create new businesses, et cetera, like your colleague. But it's definitely a challenge. I mean, one of the things I would caution her to do is that even though you're small, be thoughtful about, what platform are you going to use to generate these images? Because there are offerings, there are platforms that you can use that provide that level of transparency, that they tell you how their models were developed and, provide affirmations that they didn't use any copyrightable work, where they have appropriate licenses. And so that could be her first step, is even just making that selection. And that's what I talked about. We all are kind of in this together. And then when she's creating it, it's really important that even if I'm not artistic, so I love this, that if she can create prompts, right, and she can adjust them, being careful and of other artists and their creativity, just like she wants to be respected, and even how she crafts her prompts, right? Like I want artists, I want illustrations that look exactly like the leading children's publisher. Might not be a great prompt, right? But there are ways to do this, and I think that's what we have to think about.
Now, do you believe that a lot of these, especially image generators and text generators, that these should be open source where you can see what's actually happening? As in, if it's drawing from 10 different images of famous children's books or a certain style, is there a way that we can sort of keep track of all of that and basically footnote it to say, this was the inspiration, this was how it was generated? Should we have that traceability?
So yes, I think at a base level, that's true. I mean, there are going to be technical limitations as this technology continues to evolve, and we do have to look for ways to ensure that the provenance is there. I'm a huge fan of open source, so that is one of the benefits of, using those types of models and considering, even basing whatever you're producing in that space. But even with other models, there are companies that can offer similar transparency. People talk about the supply chain, right? Like you have an obligation to look at where, what you're using at a base level and making sure that they provide the necessary information or assurances. But definitely if there's a way to see more, that's always better.
Now, what about, are the payment platforms in place today where we can ensure that all the artists are being paid for copyrighted material, things that they bring in as their own IP? Does that exist today, or is that something that still needs to be built?
One of the things I talk about is, to me, this is very analogous to the music industry, right? In terms of sampling and, rights holders, whether it's performance, like there is a sophisticated system we have in place to compensate artists in these sorts of ways. And I think we can use that experience and those lessons from how those programs work and, possibly adapt them to the AI space. So we have what you're talking about, that creators of all sizes can get compensated for what they create.
And so AI is just moving so quickly, right? We know how quickly it's growing and the platform is constantly changing. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like from a legal perspective that we're going to be able to keep up with it, how fast it's growing, and make sure that we're logging and auditing every step of the way along?
It has always been a challenge. And I think everyone expects that regulation will not keep up pace with technology. But I think the good thing, you see with the EU AI Act, regulators have acknowledged that didn't work well in the past, and we need to approach it in many different ways, whether it be greater public-private partnerships to really understand the technical aspects of it. So what they're actually providing is practical, right? The requirements that they're providing are practically something that, companies can actually implement.
And we are in Cannes after all, and you brought up the AI Act. What do we think from a US-based perspective, since most of our clients are US-based? Can we learn from the AI Act? Is it the right level? Do we need that level of governance in the US?
Well, that's a loaded question in today's climate. But I think there's lots that we can learn, and I think we're just getting started. Even the implementation aspects of the EU AI Act are only expected later this year. So I think the US, will learn from that as well. But I think it doesn't have to be just, an AI specific regulation. We have lots of laws already on the books that have been used in lots of different ways and are written to be flexible in that way, whether it's, the copyright laws or contract laws, a whole host of things that can be used to provide some, framework protections and even guidance for companies, or our privacy laws, right? But all of those existing laws can also be used to fill the gap, as you might say, in terms of even understanding what our requirements are as companies creating this, and even what your rights are for rights holders. there are actors who play at different levels in this space in terms of what they're, what they've done and what they're open to doing in terms of risk. And I think that's always been true in commerce, and that will play out in the courts and in other spaces. But I think from a perspective of, I want to create amazing things that have great impact, and to do it in the right way, in the responsible way, I think there are opportunities because, we've seen in other circumstances where some rights holders it's less about compensation and more about attribution, right? There may be people, because this is such a transformational technology, rights holders who are happy to contribute if only to be asked. So I think there are opportunities.
And there's also that transparency layer that you need to be able to reveal your sources and ultimately where you're training from. Now, the question is, should that be global across all LLMs? What are your thoughts on how we can regulate it? Because it gets so broad so quick.
It does. And so one of the things, when I counsel customers and others, is that make sure you have the flexibility in place, that you at least have transparency on your end about how you created these things, what you're using, understanding your supply chain, understanding the provenance, so that you have the flexibility to meet whatever the standard is in whatever place you exist. Because I don't think we'll ever have a global level, because we all think differently about many different topics. But I think at base, there are some core principles, transparency being one. People want to understand so they can make decisions for themselves. That could be one area that you focus on, ensuring that you're buttoned up around.
And then what do you see as the future in legal? Is there a magic potion that we can create that will allow us to do legal better in controlling AI?
I wasn't sure where you were going. I thought you were going to say, is there a magic potion to get rid of all lawyers? Hopefully not. I think we're needed. We're called experts in the loop.
That's right.
But I don't. I think this will constantly evolve. It's a challenging space. And rightfully so, when you're being thoughtful about it, when you're being, there's so much change, you want to do the right thing. You need to make sure that you're slow about it, you're being thoughtful about it, and sort of, just taking your time. And I think that will always be there. But it's not a bad thing, I think is what I would say.
Well, I love that you're bringing the automation layer to this. I think that is very important, considering how many sources we need to go across and verify. Mm-hmm. Now, where do you think that next level should go, though? There should be something else in our future to allow us to contain AI in a better fashion.
I think there's a lot more to go. I think this is the area of innovation that I'm passionate about. How can we make the hard things easier? How can we use Gen AI to go after, just to make Gen AI safer, right? AI is safer for AI. That, I think, is where we need to focus. And we're really only at the tip of the iceberg of what this technology has to offer in terms of, the advances we see in science and medicine and even finance and agriculture. And yesterday I was at the award show here, and there was a startup talking about how AI can help with mitigating food waste, right? There's so many starving people, there's so much food waste. How can you, fix those two things? I think that's really exciting. So we should use that same innovative spirit and creativity to try to find solutions that can help ensure we put in the guardrails, that we have these automated, safety, solutions in place, so that people can continue to have these breakthroughs, but do it in a responsible way.
I love it. And I really enjoyed our discussion today.
Thank you.
And
thank you
for having me again.
All right. Have a good